Let's watch
Dear
this
President
video.
Donald
Make
Trump
sure you follow,
and
share,
Prime Minister
comment, and
Netanyahu
subscribe for more
Benjamin of
videos
the
like
country
this.
of Israel. My name is Apostle Michael Olowokere. I serve in the ministry of an apostle in God's Vineyard here in Nigeria. And I want to crave your indulgence for this message that I'm directly sending to you, to please listen to it carefully. And I trust the Lord is going to speak to your heart to take decisive decisions on how to help us in Nigeria. I'm sure you are aware of all that is happening in Nigeria. I'm very confident that you are not ignorant of them. But I find it necessary because the evil in this country has continued to prevail even to this moment. And if we do nothing about this, I'm afraid that the destiny of Christians in Nigeria is at stake. And the fate of Christians in Nigeria within the next 20, 30 years is not something we can begin to imagine, because it is going to be very horrible. This country, this entity called Nigeria, is a combination of different nations that should have existed as nations, but were brought together. So Nigeria is not the combination of different, or the amalgamation of different ethnicity. No, it is a combination or the amalgamation of different nations that have different cultures, different understanding, different lifestyle, different traditions, everything different. People that naturally should not exist together were brought together, amalgamated in 1914 by the British for the purpose of resource control. And this unholy marriage has brought a lot of calamity to this nation, Nigeria. This country has known no progress. There's never been unity. There's never been love. Whenever you hear they say one Nigeria, the concept of one Nigeria is a scam, is a mirage, and it is not true. But I'll be speaking basically this morning simply because I am a man that is fed up. Why am I fed up? Because the evil in this nation has prevailed for too long. And I'm afraid that the level we are at this time is not something we can begin to imagine, because these people we live together in this country, these people that force themselves into this nation, are working tooth and nail to ensure that they bring Nigeria to an Islamization state, to Islamize and to colonize Nigeria. And this is why it is important this morning that I bring this message to you, so that you will learn, you will understand, even though I know you are aware of this before all this, because your nations, the nation of Israel and the nation of United States, are a nation that God has blessed with resources, capacities, and abilities to gather adequate information. So there is nothing I'm saying this morning that I think you're not aware of. In 1908, between 1804 and 1808, a man called Usman Dafodio invaded the northern part of Nigeria long before the amalgamation, invaded through the process of jihad, bringing jihad, Islamization jihad, to Islamize the northern part of Nigeria. And he succeeded, conquered the Hausa. The Hausas are indigenous people of the land, but they were conquered by Usman Dafodio in 1808. And from that conquest, from that invasion, and his victory led to what today you hear of Hausa Fulanis. So the Hausas were completely conquered race, completely conquered ethnicity. They were conquered by Usman Dafodio through Islamization and through the process of jihad. And even though he intended to continue with this process all over the country, he couldn't. But after a while, a man called Afonja, that serves under the Oyo kingdom, the kingdom of Old Oyo, in those days, made a partnership with a man called Malam Alimi, a Fulani man, to help him to fight. And I think the deal was, after the war, he was going to settle down in his land. And that was exactly what happened. And today we have Fulani ethnic in Kwara State. Also, this was what brought about establishment of a caliphate, the Emirates, the caliphate in this northern Nigeria. So where the Sultan now being both the spiritual head and the father figure to all northern Hausa race, Muslim race, or people like that. But this union has brought nothing but chaos. And for a long time, they've been agenda to Islamize this nation, to turn Nigeria to what today we have as a Turkey, or to a Lebanon, and those nations that used to be a Christian nation, to turn into a Muslim nation. And what I'm talking to you about this morning, it didn't start 10 years ago. It didn't start 20 years ago. It didn't start 30 years ago. This is something that the ancestors of these people have seen and they have put in motion for the past 40, 50, 60 years in Nigeria, or more than that. And I want to tell you that at this time, they are succeeding, because the process of jihad is in full force. But let me, for clarity's sake, there are different ways nations are being Islamized. They can be Islamized, number one. The process include, number one, movement. They're moving either by migration, what we have today in Europe and in America by migration. They migrate And in that stage, when they are small, when they are little, they are peaceful. But after a time, after a while, they move to the next stage, which is the process of population. They try to give birth to as many as possible and invite more people to come and dwell there. But when they have gotten to a certain number, gaining momentum, population-wise, they move to the third stage, which is the stage of gaining authorities in government. They position themselves strategically in key government positions, and they overwhelm the nation with themselves. And you have almost every sector of the country or every sector of the country's economy filled with them, making critical decisions. And this is what you have even in America and some other parts of Europe, most part of Europe, especially and most especially in the UK. Now, when they have done that, the next stage is to enforce laws that will permit them to bring to pass or to bring into realizations the agenda of Islamization. And that is when they bring institutionalized Sharia. This stage was achieved in Nigeria between 1999 and 2000, where 12 states in northern Nigeria adopted Sharia as their ruling laws as against the Nigerian constitution. So they bring it together, but predominantly they function by the Sharia law. And this has caused nothing more than chaos. I cannot begin to tell you the amount of lives of Christians that have been lost in this. But my main point today is, few days ago, the people that were displaced in Goza local government, in a village called Ngoshi, have been living as IDP in the border of Cameroon for over 10 years, were promised by the government to return back to their land. And they returned back two nights ago, and they were all massacred. They were killed. You will see the pictures and the videos down here, sirs. They were killed, they were annihilated, they were beheaded, they were destroyed. Their properties, the village was completely destroyed. Now we have people that are responsible for this, which you know them. The dreadful Boko Haram. Then you have the Fulani jihadists that are working tooth and nail to ensure they continue with the mandate or what Usman Danfodio couldn't complete, and to ensure that they, for one purpose, both Fulani S-men and the Boko Haram and the Lakarawas and every part of this terrorists are all working towards one goal and one goal alone: to turn Nigeria to an Islamic nation. This is why you find out that Nigeria is a member of OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Nigeria is supposed to be a secular state based on the Constitution of Nigeria. However, this is not the case. Nigeria is more of an Islamic state, or more of like an Islamic nation, than a secular nation, where you have both about 50% Christians and 50% Muslims being the predominantly practiced religions. However, the Christians have been subjugated. There have been genocide every part of this nation, especially in the north and in the middle belt part of Nigeria. The churches have been burned in their thousands and thousands. People, Christians, the vulnerable Christians, locals that are Christians, have been killed in their thousands and thousands. And you think the people that have been supporting this vision, there are people up there, the sultans, the men in government. We have had many of them, including the late man Buhari, the President Muhammad Buhari, was part of the people that have been facilitating these things to ensure they bring the nation of Nigeria on its knees to submit to Islam. And now they're in the final stage of jihad. This is why you find out that there is killings and killings. I want to tell you, even though we see what is happening presently, what you're doing presently in Iran, the killings and lives that have been lost in Nigeria is 3 times more than what you have in Iran or any part of the world. Nigeria stands today as the most persecuted nation for Christians, where Christians have become endangered species. And I'm talking from experience because I was born and raised in the north, and I understand these things. And I'm bringing it to your attention this morning because at this time, critical things need to be done. Now, there's a video you're going to see on this screen now. It's a video of soldiers, Nigerian soldiers, that were beheaded a few days ago. They were decapitated. Their heads were being used as bow. Look at it there. My question this morning, sirs, is how long will this evil prevail? How long are we going to remain in this stage? The nation of Nigeria have good military men, but lack the political will and the will to fight, because the military have been infiltrated by jihadists. The government have been infiltrated by jihadists. Every part of Nigeria is infiltrated by jihadists. And if nothing is done at this time, in 20 years from today, I am afraid that we might not have Christians again in Nigeria. I'm pleading, look at this, the heads of these people here. These are people's brothers. These are people's husbands. This is somebody's son. These are people's sons. These are people's neighbors. These are people's friends. But they were beheaded. Look at. So you will know that we are not one in this nation, and we can never be one. How could somebody become an animal to treat his fellow human being this way? How could somebody behave? This is a beastly act. Such people do not deserve to live among men. Therefore, I am calling for you to intercede as soon as possible in Nigeria. Two things I want to say this morning. Number one, is either the government of Nigeria permits the citizens to legalize arms, where citizens can own arms to protect themselves, because the Nigerian government have failed woefully to protect our citizens. The Nigerian military cannot. They are doing very little in protecting the citizens. So it's either you make the government of Nigeria to permit that every citizen of this nation, as many as that have the means, obtain a means of defending themselves. Because you see, the right to life is a fundamental human right. And every human has the fundamental right, both before God and before the nation, to protect themselves. So legalize it, talk to the government on it, press them. Because the government of Tinubu has sold out the nations to the jihadists, where the government of a nation pays ransom in tunes of millions and millions to terrorists. And with this ransom, they have the means to obtain more rifles, more weapons to terrorize Christians. And now, even Muslims alike, those that are moderate Muslims, those that are not adherent to the principles of Sharia, those that do not submit to the principles of Sharia that are Muslims, are even being killed at this time. Because their goal is one, to make Sharia the only law for a nation, for Nigeria, and also to Islamize the nation. So Nigerians must protect themselves. Please make it that the nation of Nigeria can protect themselves, that every citizen, as much as possible, as many as they can own rifle, can own weapon to protect themselves. Or the second option, this nation should divide. Everyone should go their way, because you see, there is no time the nation have been one at all. The concept of one Nigeria has been a mirage. It's been forceful. It's been lies from the pit of hell. And this has brought a lot of chaos. Lives have been destroyed in cause. I am pleading with you, President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, help Nigerians. Come to the rescue of Christians in Nigeria. What you see in Iran is very, very little to what is happening in Nigeria. Every single day, there is hardly a day, hundreds and tens and thousands of Christians are not being killed, especially in the middle belt, in the northern part of Nigeria, and now, even in the southern part of Nigeria, in the southwest, where where worshippers in the church have been abducted, kidnapped, and killed, where churches have become, they have no regard for churches, they go into churches and they kill people. This has been for years, for decades. I'm sure you are aware of everything I'm talking about. But as a concerned Nigerian, and as a man that serves in the vineyard of God, I call upon you this morning. Come to the aid of Nigerians. Rescue this nation from the hands of terrorists, from the hand of jihadists. If you don't do anything at this time, I believe that what you have at the position you are today, because God has placed you there, and I see what you do, and that's why I call you God's servant. Because I believe that what you are doing now is the will of God, to restore some sanity back to the insanity in the world, especially in nations that support terrorism, that finance terrorism, like Nigeria, where government paid ransom. And we have key men that have risen high in government, that have played strategic role, that have played strategic and still play. They are instrumental to the establishment of Boko Haram. They were instrumental to the banditry, to the terrorism, and to the genocide in Nigeria. Most of them are governors. Some presently, some have served, some have been president, some have been prime minister, some have been chief of army staff, chief of defense staff, men that have held key positions in this nation. And they are there today. We need your help. I am tired of seeing bloodshed every day. I couldn't sleep. I saw this video, I couldn't sleep. This is why I'm making this video today. I lost my peace since yesterday. Because how could a human being do this to another human being in the name of a God? Nigeria can never be Islamized. Nigeria will never be Islamized. Not in my own time. Because evil have prevailed this long in the nation of Nigeria, because the righteous men have been too quiet. So I'm pleading with you and I'm calling upon you. Ensure that every citizen in Nigeria can own a weapon, just like you have it in the Second Amendment of the United States, where citizens have the right to legally possess arms to defend themselves. The Nigerian government are doing nothing to protect the people. To them, it's all about power, embezzlement of funds, and re-election. To the military men, some being faithful, but most of them are overwhelmed by jihadists. We cannot continue like this. Let the nation of Nigeria split. Because, like I said, we have never been one. The concept of one Nigeria has been